whether the light band is on or off and what color it is from the door versus having some rooms that's not possible. So you do have to walk to the front of the room to make sure it's on. But like my motto, my routine is after setup for each room, talk to the presenter, make sure they understand. But as soon as sessions kick off, I then check every single room because I've had people forget to hit the button. Like I haven't left the room, they've started talking and they haven't hit the button. So it's not like sometimes they're there early and they forget. It's just this is not their priority. So it's our priority, which is also why I don't rely on room monitors because I don't know who they are. If I know who they are and they're reliable, I'll check that room last maybe, but I'm still checking it because it's on us ultimately to get this done. Okay, so enough of that. So cables. This Velcro strip is attached to the HDMI cable, so you're not losing it. The dongles are attached to the HDMI cable, so they're not going anywhere. I've learned my lessons. So with each cable bundle, there's the audio cable. They'll vary in shapes and sizes. There is this cable that comes with the PBR. So it's one of these regular USB square on the other side. The red dangly bit we don't use.
That's where the black one, not the red one, thing comes in.
Yeah, I mean it literally doesn't matter, but it's easier to think the short one we don't need it. Yeah. Its purpose is for if you are trying to self-power off of a PC, it doesn't drive enough USB bus power. So that's why you plug them both in. Yep. So not our use case. So we're going to pretend that this is going into a charging block. I'm just going to plug it into another laptop just because my power is not terribly close to my desk here and they're all full. So that goes into the back. And then you've got lights, so that's good. What else? So we'll skip HDMI for now. So then there's also, and this is varying lengths. I've started only getting the long ones. The regular USB, I think that's USB mini. I don't know. That goes into the Zoom. So in the Zoom, you only care about the one side. So that goes in for power. And then that'll go into a thing. And this one actually, for setting up, it doesn't even need to go to power because it's got batteries. But once it's plugged in, it's good. Although it knows it's plugged to a computer, so we'll turn that off. We'll pretend it's plugged in. See, audio, that's easy. So again, everything, it's line out, sorry. But, because again, it's out, it's feeding it. Yep. But I've done it where I've plugged it into the wrong one. This is why we check midday to make sure the recordings are good, because sometimes I've forgotten to plug them in. It happens. So this goes into the front of the device there. There's only one audio, so that's easy. And then HDMI. So the end with the dongles attached, those will be on the podium side. And then the other end will go into, this is HDMI out. Right? Mm-hmm. We'll pretend we have an HDMI in. HDMI in would go from this is HDMI. Oh my God, it's
HDMI in goes from the computer.
You're
and
muted,
then out goes.
Bob, unless I did something.
In goes from the computer and out goes to the projector?
Yeah, that would be correct. Oh my goodness. And so for out, nowadays most projectors are HDMI and it's not a problem. Some are still VGA, and so there's usually there will be a pack of VGA to HDMI converters. And that's where they don't always attach. So there's extra long black zip ties that you just basically have to zip tie it together. So it will stay throughout. Let's talk about lights right now. So right now it's flashing red and blue. Flashing red means I don't have anything to write to. So let's fix that. So usually I have 2 sets of media for every room. I put them in bags with room numbers. That way it keeps me from messing up which is which as I change them throughout the day. So once you plug in, eventually it will just flash blue, because flashing blue means I've got media, I don't have a signal. So I'm not hooked up to anything. So I guess I do need to get an HDMI cable. I will. Oh, that's it. Well, so that's it. Let's talk about the lights. The lights are the other big pain in the ass. So you want volume to be about midway. You want the green audio icon lit. That's the only thing you ever want lit. But it's like real easy to accidentally do that. That's not terrible, because it just means now I can change all this stuff, which is bad. But this alone is not terrible. This is one of the worst things. It's a decibel gain. It destroys the audio for the whole thing. Completely unusable, which is why we have the backup audio. And another bad one is this. Mute means no audio. No audio is worse than bad audio. They're both bad. So always throughout the day, check that these, because like literally you could brush it with a cable and it's been, so just turn them all off. It's just a tap. I want to eventually find a way to like get in here, solder them away so that they're not available, or put a cover over it. But you know,
Does it default to being locked?
Yes, because if you touch it now, it's unlocked.
Okay, I might
So
be able to design a little 3D printed cover that we could stick over there.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, anything like to just, it would have to be clear though, so we could still monitor. Because theoretically, pressure could.
Yeah, I guess just a little hole that you can't really touch, but that you can see would work, right?
Yeah, and I've thought about lots of ways to, but it's yeah, but that is a good idea. On the audio side, we have the SD card goes into the bottom. It's tough to open and keep it open and insert the thing, but you know, it works. And then once it goes in, you'll see SD card access. That's good. And it will also show you what? Nothing currently. So this is just default set. Nothing's happening. So with these, we set these to record all day long, just so that way we don't accidentally not have it running. So this down here, that's starting the recording. And you want to see that you've got an MP3 file writing. If you don't, that means there's no SD card in there, and it won't last very long. And then the other thing is you switch whatever this lock is, the hold button. You flip that up. This way, you can't stop the recording. If I lose power, I've got batteries. This thing is, someone has to really want to stop this, which I've had that happen too. So always kind of make sure that, although, did I not? See, this has a red light too, which should be on. Maybe
it was on a moment ago.
Yeah. So yeah. So you do want to keep an eye, like that should be lit. That's recording. So once this is set up, you kind of forget about it. I do switch these out at lunchtime. Again, because I want to start processing videos as soon as possible. I also want to do like a spot check to make sure that the recording is going well.
That red light on top of the mic, is that just power, or is that also an indicator?
It's power.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the only one that says it's recording. And I usually don't point this at the door, because again, like once it's set, you can generally forget it, but you're at the podium. Every session is just another thing to just kind of
Look at.
take
Yeah.
a peek at. And then I guess, I don't know, the other issue is like once, yeah, screw it, I'll go get another cable just because I want you to appreciate how long it takes for it to actually connect. And that's usually when everybody's like, it's not working. And it's like, no, you gotta wait. All right, so hold on, I'll be right back.
So, how's it going, Bob?
Not bad. How you doing?
Doing good. Coming back from a long weekend. It was a fun one. I went down to Orlando with my girlfriend. It was a good time. Just visiting some of the theme parks and why not down there. How long have you been in Canada? Have you always been in Canada?
No, just about a year. I
Oh,
was in
cool.
Japan for 20 years before that.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's not what I was expecting you to say. I was like, Japan. So you speak Japanese?
I do, yeah.
That's
Oh.
cool.
Yeah. So one thing that Kevin was talking about that I've seen it happen sometimes at Florida and other places is that sometimes people might take meetings in the room while we are at lunch. Because I had something like that happen and I wasn't sure if it was me who unplugged the thing because I was pretty sure it was working and I had the recordings for the morning. So sometimes people know how to turn them off because they had the equipment at other camps and they take a meeting in the room and they disconnect it so you don't record their call. But then you have to check right before the event starts again. Because I made an assumption for one room and that was lost because I came back after that session and then that person had it off and I was like, what happened here? How the heck is this unplugged? Because
Yeah.
that recorder, I usually set it, leave it, and forget it in the morning. Once it's running, you just have to swap it once, and then it's good to go.
Yep. But
Back to you, Kevin.
that's what we've learned, never assume. Trust, but always verify. That's another thing I've got. All right, so we're gonna plug it in, and this is on an older laptop, so it might go quick, but all right, we're plugged in. So right now is when people look at the projector and see nothing, and then they panic. But like this, if it takes longer than a minute, then I start to troubleshoot. But the worst that happens is like it's been 30, 40 seconds and they unplug something to try again. It's like you just restarted the clock. And nothing's happening. But I don't think my laptop detected it either. So still gonna leave it in. Where's this going?
Something that I've seen happen at least last year at GovCon that you may see
Because
some.
they're switched. That's why.
Oh,
In is from in. I had it plugged in. In is from the laptop. See, that was quick. My laptop flickered. It's still blue, so my laptop detected something, but this is still working. Yeah, in from the laptop
There
out
it
to
goes.
there we go. So now green. So it does take time, and this is the part that always inevitably people are like, what's going on? It's like just wait, and I just stare at this light. Nothing else. So, and then obviously hit the red button. That turns red. And this is what I look for at the start of each session. And I have no qualms about walking in and saying, excuse me, you got to start the recording. I'd rather miss a couple minutes than the whole thing. And then technically don't have to hit the red button to stop it. But I tell everybody to anyway, and it's flashing. Flashing means it's writing the file. Because it has power, separate power, I used to power them by USB laptops. And if it loses power, it won't, so it doesn't write anything until it stops. But if it loses power, there's nothing. So theoretically, we could lose it if it's plugged in and they trip the power cord, which I've had that happen at events because like at Florida, especially like all the power's right at the feet of that front row.
Mhm.
It's just, Florida is an interesting free venue. That's all I'll say about that. And that's basically it. So, like I said, I will swap media midday. And since I'm the one who processes them, I will then just get right on them. when it's not me, like Bernardo will then start uploading files to Google Drive. I'll create folders when I'm not there for each event, and then I'll start pulling. But like, ideally, you're also just spot checking. And to do that, like I'll copy the files off to my laptop and I'll just kind of open them in Finder to just kind of get a sense. Oh, I've got audio. Great. If I've got no audio, I'll check another one. Could be that both of them had a situation where there was no audio, but if all the sessions of Room have no audio, then I'm checking the equipment.
Okay. So you do all of the post-processing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't need it to stay that way, but I have video editing experience from my former life, so happy to do it.
Okay. I have that experience as well, so if I can
Oh, nice.
help there, that's also possible. What do you use to do what you do?
I've got Final Cut. It's what I learned.
Okay,
so
yeah, that's
what I use.
That's what I prefer as well.
Yeah, and I think we've discussed this. I do minimal processing. Like I will generally, if they start within the first few seconds, I don't trim. Sometimes they don't start, so then I have to find it, and then I'll check the end. If they've ended pretty quickly after the applause, it's good. The fewer I have to touch, the better. But if there's no audio, obviously, or if there's bad audio, then you have to pull it from the SD card. So I do copy all the SD card files anyway, even if I don't need them. That way I've always got I always save all of the raw files and then push the published files.
Yeah, what is that they say in video production? If you don't have two copies, you don't have a copy.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've got, again, thanks to my former life, I've got several terabytes of drives just sitting around collecting camp videos. Yeah, and then unless you know that a session has live video going on, each card, like the USB cards now range in 8, 16, and I think these are 32s. I don't know. So you can't get small storage anymore. So, but even an 8 gig card will hold a whole day's worth of sessions. Each session is it ranges between 400 megs to a gigabyte for an hour. But if I didn't realize this, makes sense. If there's because there's nothing going on these.
Yeah, there's movement. It takes.
It's the slide change. But if there's a rolling GIF, or someone did a fireside chat and had just a video going on there, just a fireplace, it ran out of room on that card, and I didn't realize it because it was just too big. So, yeah, lesson learned there. Pretty rare that happens. But there's some sessions where, especially for accessibility, they'll be playing videos to talk about how different tools work. So that can eat it, but generally, that's another reason why there's always 2 cards, 2 of each media, and 2-day events are not as common these days. So.
Do they? Does the recorder, when it runs out of memory, I assume it gives you some kind of error code in the lights?
It'll just stop. Yeah.
So it'll just turn green again, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
But then you won't be able to start it because it's out of room.
But it'll write what it got.
At least I think so. It's only happened once in my time doing this.
But when that happens, it writes what it got.
Yeah, and then it's done.
Quits. Okay.
Yeah. Something new that I need to add to the instructions is I have it on my laptop, so it's always available, but I want to start getting to the practice of keeping a thumb drive with, I should just put it on all the thumb drives because, no. I was at Florida and the speaker accidentally tripped on the HDMI cable and it cut everything out. And we reset it all up, but it wasn't working. So somehow it killed the recorder. the PVR. So thankfully Bernardo had a spare, so we set it up, and I just had it when I refreshed the drawing a blank
Firmware?
the firmware, it brought it back. It was working again. Because I have one unit I have to find that in Amsterdam, it was recording each subsequent file over the previous file. So that's the only reason I lost sessions in Amsterdam. And I only lost 2, I think. So I've never used that device again, but I haven't tried to redo the firmware on that to see if that would bring it back to life. But that is the benefit of swapping media at lunch and checking that things are going smoothly. And we don't always have spares available. So that's another just fact of life. Depends on, like, there's 2 kit sizes. One holds 5, one holds 8. GovCon in the past has had 8 rooms. So if one dies, they're out of luck. I don't know how many rooms they'll have this year.
So I wrote down 2 questions while you were talking through before I started just butting in with questions. Is there a charger in the kit for the batteries, or do the batteries themselves plug into something, or how do you charge them?
Yeah, I recharge them before the event, and like they'll go days.
Right, but how do you charge them? Do you have a charger, or?
I do, like one of those 4-pack rechargers.
Okay.
You just plug it into the wall.
That's in the
don't
kit?
bring it with me.
Okay.
Nope.
Oh, so
It's not-
okay.
it's
So
not
you're just saying the kit goes out charged is the idea.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And you'd have to run it really long for them to die.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
And my second question was about post processing. So I think we covered that. I did notice on a few of the recordings that it would have benefited from some noise reduction, like there's room hum and things like that.
And like, I don't know, I don't have enough experience with audio work, and Final Cut's tools are pretty useless because like you can reduce the hum, but now you've created this weird kind of tinniness. So it really depends if it's really bad. One thing related to that, never plug in, if you can avoid it, into any podium power. Always ask for a power strip plugged in elsewhere, because podium can introduce clicking, which will then also be in your backup audio, or it will introduce a hum.
Right. And
never plug into the room audio. Like, this is always meant to be separate, standalone, because it's a good enough mic that it will benefit from a room that has like a room audio system, but I don't ever want that failure to ruin the recording.
Yeah, and because you're using the mic that you're using, you get at least some degree of the audience questions in as well. Whereas if you were using the room audio, you would get none of that.
Right, and unless it's a big like auditorium, it's definitely getting the whole room, all the door slams and everything, coughs, sniffles, you name it.
Except that one session that I went to in about Astro in Florida. That guy was just so quiet.
Oh.
Can't remember his name, but I couldn't hear him in the room, and I couldn't hear him afterwards. So.
Yeah, and if that's one that I know of, I'll just boost the audio level in post. But like I said, usually they start out quick, and then if they're gonna go quiet, they go quiet midway because they get comfortable. So
I was debating whether to ask him to speak up, but I thought I'll just work on some work and catch it in the recording, and then in the recording it was still pretty quiet. So
yeah. I wish that YouTube would let you replace videos, because Vimeo you can do that, but YouTube you cannot. So it's like, then you'd have to remove it from everything. You lose the play counts, but if that matters, it's annoying.
Yeah.
The other thing worth mentioning, it's on the instructions, the podium instructions, but people don't always pay attention. If ever someone has to change anything of their display settings, whether they need to switch from monitoring or mirroring to separate, or they have to, anything that will, or change resolution for whatever reason, you must stop and restart the record. The recorder will not indicate there's any issue, but from that point forward, it will just be garbled. Not sure what that is or if there's a workaround, but
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
and there's no real good way to know that that's coming. Generally, presenters are nervous enough about that they'll ask, and that's been good enough. And the more that these take place, audience will be like, hey, you need to do something. So, I mean, at least that's how it used to be when these were more often, but we're slowly getting back up to there.
Yeah.
And then again, like the whole PC audio, like if there's time, like I'll ask them to make sure that they can, check that they've got their USB or their HDMI audio enabled and set to the Rocket, because it shows up as PVR Rocket.
Okay. Yeah, that's the part that I'm a little bit worried about, because I haven't touched Windows or Linux display settings pretty much at all in the last.
And I don't know where that is, and sometimes they don't know where that is, and that's why I was real hot on it when I was doing more events, because try to fix fewer, but then it also doesn't always work. So it's easier to just fix it in post sometimes. It's tougher. It's more important when it's a foreign language. Like I had to fix some sessions in French and try to figure out where is this when they started? Is this the slide change? I don't know. So yeah, those take a little longer.
I wondered if you plug in. Do you know if you plug in analog cables to that PVR, does it cut out the HDMI audio, or does it just disable what that issue was? That
there's nowhere that you'd be able to.
Okay, I thought in the manual it said something about if you plug in.
The only other thing, there's this AV-in, I think that's a composite cable.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. If you plug something in, it indicates in the manual that if you plug something in there, I'm trying to remember what exactly it said, but it seemed like that issue with it requiring an audio signal, it would assume it's getting it from analog, and so it wouldn't do the checks that it does to cause it to just not get audio at all. So it could be just plugging a stub cable into that port would be enough to fool it into not requiring audio.
Yeah, it's possible. There are times though where we do need the audio, and in that case they have to choose HDMI to test it, and they'll usually have questions, because worst case, the question will be like, will it pick up audio from my laptop? And the answer is maybe, and so we always want to try and test that out. Because again, a lot of that all too depends on whether or not the projector has speakers, because sometimes that's not the case, or they're muted, or something else is going on, in which case then I just tell them, max your volume and put the microphone near your laptop.
So the PVR is passing through audio though, right? So if you're testing and they play audio through and it doesn't come out the speakers and there are speakers, that's a sign that it's not working, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they would need to make sure that their audio is recognizing the PVR, because it's automatic if it's HDMI, less so on non-Macs, but yeah, it generally just works.
Yeah, so the ideal case, it seems like, would be that if you had a little stub that you could plug into the component box and test it and found that doesn't block the HDMI audio from coming through, but does trigger it to think that it's getting audio even when it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Then you could just have that plugged in, and then you don't have to worry about whether they set their thing, as long as they don't actually need the audio coming out of their computer.
Yeah.
Because that blocks it from getting the audio from the Zoom box even, right? That's the issue.
Yeah, I remember looking it up. It's sending like a null signal, so that way because it's supposed to mix it. There's a mixer
Yeah.
on board, so it's supposed to mix whatever's coming through the cable, HDMI and the audio cable together. But whatever, there's something saying nope, do none of this and take.
And
nobody.
I remember the manual saying that if component audio is coming in, that it will not fail that. It'll record audio, but it didn't make it clear whether it will then mix whatever your analog signal is and your HDMI signal. But if it will, and just having that plugged in makes it think that it's got audio, then you could avoid that null signal blocking it from getting any audio at all.
Yeah, I've got a couple new units in box and they come with something that you plug into there. So I can give that a test to see at least if it still works with something plugged in. I've got some ancient PC laptops lying around that I used to use to test, like way back when there were a lot more HDMI projectors and laptops with HDMI out and VGA out and no HDMI. Glad those days are gone. So yeah, I might be able to test that.
Yeah, that'd be cool if it worked. That'd be one less thing to worry about.
It'd be nice to have to make this more error proof.
So something we haven't talked about is the difference between connecting to a TV and a video projector.
Yeah. Ideally, it's no difference, but there are times I think were they all new kits? I think they were all new kits. But that said, I've even hit this with kits that are not new kits. So, and I've also had this. So there's a weird thing. If you long hold the red button, it'll start flashing red. What that's doing is that's toggling the I will not allow on non-rights HDMI,
HDCP
whatever.
protection, right?
Yeah, that, and you'll get flashing green. Flashing green, you just have to do the reverse. Again, hold it until it flashes red. Oop, I didn't hold it long enough. Unless I did, I don't know. I've probably ruined this. But we'll see. But because I was at Twin Cities, and none of their rooms were working, and they were projectors. So I needed to do that on those anyway. So that's just it is documented, but like if things are going weird, do the long hold.
So do you want it flashing red or flashing green to not be protecting?
Well, if it's flashing green, that means or if it's just not working. Because that's like I had they just wouldn't connect. And like I had tested them at home, nothing was working. So I'm like, and I remembered Bernardo's problem because it wasn't too long after GovCon. I'm like, you know what, let me just try this. And then suddenly it worked. But I had to, I think 4 out of the 5 kits I had to flash. So a little unknown, but when in doubt, do the long hold.
I'm glad we know about that.
But the first troubleshooting is unplug it. So power cycle at first. If that doesn't do it, change out cables. If that doesn't do it, then now start crossing fingers and doing whatever.
Sometimes you have to do the long hold twice because I know there's the privacy protection and there's something else that I see sometimes that is not a solid green and you're like, what's going on here? And that happened to me at GovCon last year. But after you do it twice and do the power cycling, it comes back up. But yeah, I was in the manual for a little while because I thought, oh, shoot, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, the HDCP.
It's pretty rare that it's all TVs, but that was at a hotel, using hotel ballrooms. So, yeah.
That has cost me more hours, that HDCP, for various things, trying to move media around or whatever.
Yep.
You may see it at some camps too, because I know Asheville has a room that had a TV last year, and they may have that TV again. But most of them video projectors, and I think I don't know if it's the PVR. I think it's the newer video projectors that have that thing. The older video projector don't care. It's the newer, just
Newer and probably more expensive.
Yeah.
The the cheap ones managed not to throw in all that extra garbage that the manufacturing associations want to require them to include.
Right, right. I guess other just sort of general housekeeping things. I do bring my own gaffer's tape, so I will do gaffer's tape on like two like rounds of gaffer's tape, because I mean there's no good place to stick it on these except the feet, but the feet are typically like sometimes they're hanging over the edge of the podium, so this is always the tough one. But sometimes I'll tape cables down to help hold this unit in place, and then gaffer's tape on the bottom of this was usually enough to hold it. But you'll also get podiums where they're like tape free, so like no matter what you do, tape just comes off. So you do balancing acts and weird stuff, or yeah, that's always fun. But I've also had to tape down cables because whatever the AV department did to set up the room, like it's a trip hazard. Usually, if there's time, I'll try to offload that on the organizers of the venue, but they're generally also all scrambling.
Yeah.
Because in most cases, like it's deluxe if you can set up the day before. In most cases, you're setting up morning of. And then it's like, well, I can't, countless times, like, okay, setting up morning of, there's no power for me. The rooms are locked. Room's not set up. There's no projector. So it's like clock is ticking. And it's just, well, I'll get to that later. And it's just, it can get stressful, that first morning setup. And I do, if it's a multi-day event, as long as the venue is reasonably secure, I will leave the equipment set up overnight. I'll just power everything down. So it's just not on all night. But I've never had anything walk.
So it's basically as long as the rooms or the whole venue are lockable or are going to be locked.
Yeah, or if it's always a judgment call, but like, and the venue's not going to want to take responsibility. They're like, "Are you sure?" It's like, "Yeah, it's fine." I've only done it once, and that was 2 mid camps ago when there were events taking place in the room after our sessions. So it's like then you have to take it down.
Yeah.
That sucked because now you've got set up the next morning again. Usually after a night of drinking.
where was that at?
Mid camp two mid camps ago. Because
Oh, wow.
we were out of our normal cycle, which mid camp 2025 is also going to be that since DrupalCon stepped on our dates. So we're pushing to May.
Ooh.
We usually like to be like, we're usually the last week in the semester. So that way students are there, but they're focusing on finals and classes are over. So they're not having events. But we were in April because it was our first time back. We wanted to be a little warmer so that we could do some outside focused events for socials. And yeah, that was painful.
That's interesting. Well, that's
Yeah.
good. It was your home camp because I'm sure you will be like, oh, which camp? I'm busy. And that's a lot of work to pull that stuff off the same day and go back in the next morning.
Yeah. I mean, I've done enough where I like, if that's what it is, that's what.
Yeah, the recordings I was doing for my organization before were maximum of 2 recordings going at once, but I was running bigger cameras and those Atomos Ninja recording monitors and some switchers and things like that at the same time. So unless the room was really secure, I was tearing all that stuff out and taking it to the hotel and coming back.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's not fun to reset up every day and go, it worked yesterday and everything looks how it looked yesterday. What?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, that outlet doesn't work today for some reason.
Yeah. And then I guess the other things is people will ask you AV questions. We're not AV. Get an organizer, get the venue. Though it is good to know an organizer who has contact with the venue, because a failed projector is still blocking you from doing your job.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I want to resolve this so I can get to the other stuff, because there's anywhere from 2 to 8 rooms to be managed,
Right.
and ideally all in one building. But Bernardo, you saw how stressful that can be, multiple buildings. Bad Camp, I hope never comes back, because that was like 3 or 4 buildings.
Wow.
That's
I think
always a
they're
nightmare.
trying to bring it back, but they were also talking about doing some kind of hackathon
Yeah.
this time.
So that doesn't
So,
need to be recorded. So
yeah.
let's hope it stays that way.
Hey. Yeah, at GovCon, yeah, last year was interesting just because of that, but also because you have to decide which problem to tackle. Because I had like 2 or 3 people asking me to help them with their computer issues right before the session started.
Yep.
And sometimes I would spend like 5 to 10 minutes with a person. And if that I couldn't resolve, I have to move on and tell them I'll be right back. Because if I don't move on, then the other people are going to be stressed that they are about to hit their time. And then we'll just move
Uh-huh.
on and
Yeah.
start. So it's interesting how you sometimes have to be like, well, this problem might be too much for right now. I'll be back. And
Yeah.
then
And if they're having a problem, that means they're already potentially starting late. So that's the exact correct way to do it. It's like, I'll try to do this, but otherwise, let me go set these other rooms up, and I'll be right back.
Do the easy ones and then tackle the challenge at the end. Hopefully, there's only one of those, right?
Yeah, exactly. But when it rains, it pours.
Yeah.
Or like after lunch, all the presenters are late. So it's like, or when presenters go long, it's like, well, now that snowballs. And again, there's supposed to be room monitors who are supposed to tell people, but it's all volunteer. So I rely on nobody except what's in my control.
sometimes you have to jump on the table to turn on and off the video projectors. Because I've seen it where the remote is not there.
Oh
And
yeah, or it doesn't work. Yeah.
or there's an HDMI in the wall, but it doesn't work either. So last year at the hotel, I had to ask the lady in the front desk to give me an HDMI cord and plug it straight into the thing. And it was a little
Oh.
weird because it's dangling, but you try to get it out of the way and be like, okay, let me plug that in first and make sure that actually works because that other thing didn't do anything. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, creative problem solving is something I enjoy. That's definitely part of, like, if I had to come up with a list of requirements for recording this, it's not technical knowledge. It's not AV. This is all just set these things up, make sure that they're running. It's reliability, accountability, consistency, so that you're always there, you're always checking, and you're on time. So like those are the key things. And then when things go wrong, not accepting that we can't get it to work. Ultimately, if it can't, it can't. Not the end of the day. You bypass the recorder. But any problems that go on, the in-house AV is looking at our stuff. So like I've had situations like, all right, let's take everything out of the equation. Let's even try different laptops. Still not working. That's on you. But you have to be polite about it.
Yeah.
Because right away they're like, oh, this is outside stuff. We can't help you. It's like, no, it's your problem. Let me show you. So, but have to be nice about it. Because ultimately, if something goes wrong, they need to fix it.
Yeah.
So
That creative problem solving is funner when it doesn't have to be done in 2 minutes or less. But,
oh yeah, and it's fun to think back on.
Yeah.
It's never fun in the moment, especially when there's a whole room waiting.
Yeah.
Presenters freaking out. It's like, well, we'll do what we can when we can.
By the way, take advantage of those little pouches that Kevin has for storage. Because in the past, when the event is small, I just put them in there and I remember which one I use, which one I swap, and why not. But for something like GovCon, you have to be really good at naming on those pouches. Because I lost a couple of things in there because you're just swapping them fast and then you go upload them and you're like, ooh, let me go back and check which one it was. But now you have 4 packages that are full of SD cards and then you have the other one. So it's like which ones were empty, which ones were full, and then you're a little stressed moving around. So yeah, it can be interesting how that works out. And I also try to fit in lunch because you want to have that and water.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I've
appreciate.
definitely just even like as I'm putting them down and swapping, like in that moment, it's like, oh shit, which is which?
Yeah. I appreciate
I
that
said
you
something.
booked travel to go to GovCon. It was I was happy to do
Yeah,
it, but it
that's-
was good. It seemed like a big one to start out with, so I'm relieved that you'll be there and can show
Yeah,
me the ropes a
and-
little.
Yeah, Andrea's staying here so she can help with mom. And like I'm usually lately airfare and hotel is so expensive. And so, but I mean, mentoring is important. And airfare was cheap. So it's like, screw it, I'm going. And I figured usually I'll always get there the day before. I usually also stay till the day after. But I booked a flight for the last day because I figured even if it's an early flight, you would have had enough, boots on the ground experience. But the flight is at 5:30, so I'll be able to like get most of the day too. So
Great. Yeah, I appreciate that.
yeah,
I need to book my flights here pretty soon, but I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to be at that
flying
at
from,
that time. Yeah, so as soon as I get that nailed down, I'll get in a reimbursement request on that link that you shared.
cool.
One other thing is, whenever you're ready to start the day, it doesn't matter who the presenter is, just remind them about hitting the button and why not. Because I had well-known people who are presenters.
They're the worst.
Yeah. And they don't like it that you tell them, because I had people tell me, I know I'm an old-time speaker, and they still blow it. And you're like, what the heck, why you tell me no? So you tell them, and you tell them it's for you, because I told them last year, no, I'm not asking you for you, it's for me, because I need you to press that button, because otherwise, I need the recording. So I just take the responsibility from them, because they just feel guilty that you're reminding them, because there are some people sitting in their room, but also if you don't remind them, they might not do it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I've also had room monitors get upset with me because like you're doing my job. It's like, sorry, unless you're like identified to me, I don't know who you are. Sorry, no offense. I don't mean to, but also I'm on the hook. They paid for this. Like I want to try to make sure to get it.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
People are tough. People are the hardest part of everything.
Yeah. They're also like Tim Erickson for one. He's challenging because he will always do a preamble before he actually starts. Sometimes 10, 15 minutes, just kind of like intros and stuff like that. And that's his presentation style, and that's fine. But then he doesn't always remember to hit the button. So it's like, or he hits it early, or it's like so. Or like there's no audio, so it's like, where did this thing actually start? Or his laptop goes to sleep. It's like,
And sometimes for first-time presenters, if I go into a room and I see them nervous and they are already plugged into the thing and they are about to start potentially in the next 5 minutes, I just tell them that I'm gonna hit the button for them. And then just they don't have to worry about it anymore. Because most people that I see that are first time that are trying to get everything started and why not, and then a little bit in a panic, they will always forget. So if you just tell them, let me just press the button for you and get you started and you don't have to worry about it, then they're okay and they're good to go. Yeah, you usually don't need that with the seasoned presenters, but with somebody, you can do them a little bit of that favor.
yeah.
You helped me
A fun
by
one too.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I said you helped me by saying you can start it early. I started it probably 5-10 minutes early just so I wouldn't forget, since I hadn't presented before and I knew I was going to be nervous.
Yeah, for sure. I've also had people either it was started for them or they started it and forgot. So then when it's time to start their talk, they actually stop it, thinking they're starting it. And so then that's a loss. Not always, like it's pretty rare, but like it's like, aw. Or someone else will come and do it, like because they think they didn't see them do anything. It's like, but again, that's why it's just keeping an eye on that recording light is key. So